Today's episode of On the Ground Parenting is made possible by the generous donations of our listeners. To learn more, look in the show notes or listen to the end of the episode.
Welcome back to On the Ground Parenting. This is a podcast brought to you by Muskoka Family Focus. From the Parent Ed team, joining you in this podcast is me, Sandy,
Sam,
and Kelly.
Can you tell I stumble over that every time, everybody? I stumble over it every time. So I just want to put it out there. That's what I do. I stumble. Well, we've been talking about holidays, what it means to get together, whether you're going to be celebrating with a big group or not. Is it faith-based for you? Is it not? And actually, last session, we talked about, I think, Samantha, you mentioned about Christmas trees. And I really wanted everyone to know that last year I got my Christmas tree the end of November, and it's a real tree, and it was up until after St. Patrick's Day. The needles were petrified on the tree. They were crisp. They were hard. They were not falling off. So I set this little goal every year, and I have a Christmas tree for that length of time. And I love it. I think my neighbors think I'm a little bit odd, but that's okay. I like the lights in my living room.
Yeah, lights are great. When I was in college, we had a tree that we put up for Christmas, and we left it up and redecorated it for every holiday because we were in college. We didn't have any decor. There was nothing. So we just had this cute little tree in the corner with the lights on. And it's kind of, the tree always stays up for a long time in my house too. Like there are times when, I don't even want to tell you. No, I'm not going to tell you how late the latest one was. It was late.
And Sam, you talked a little bit about getting the tree and how you had one year where you almost didn't have a tree. And some people actually even have a tradition around a tree. So that might even be an activity. What we've been talking about is, does it have to be surrounding the gift giving? Can there be a different intention? What's the meaning of this time together for you and your family? And especially, most people right now are really aware of the cost of everything. And so if we can be a little more practical, a little more realistic, come down to what the deeper meaning is of what we're trying to achieve, then maybe we can let go of spending money that we might not even have, or stressing out about not having the money to do the things that we think we want to do. How about you, Kelly?
You know, as you were saying that, it's making me think about, I think presents are one of my love languages, but presents are a love language in that, do they make me feel seen and heard and valued? And so they're not expensive. They're not fantastical. I have a good friend who their Christmas Eve tradition is the adults in the house collect cardboard boxes, squirrel them away in the garage. And on Christmas Eve, after the kids have gone to bed, the adults build fantastical forts or libraries or castles. The theme has varied over the years. And so when the kids wake up on Christmas morning, they have this whole village built for them. And I love it because it's all made out of recycling. And when you're done with it, whether it outlasts your Christmas tree or not, it goes back in the recycling. And to me, that's a gift of connection and creativity and laughter, both for the adults and then the kids who are like, where did this come from? And as kids got older and were able to stay up later on Christmas Eve, they became part of the builders rather than the finders.
A lot of fun in that capacity. I think part of what you were exploring too was the difference between wants and needs and the importance of really deeply listening. Because we can discover that even though a child might be saying, I want this, I want this, I want this, over the course of the year, you have heard a whole other underlying story of what they're really interested in. So that flash in the moment, desire that they might have may not be the long lasting experience that they really appreciate. Sam, how has that evolved for you?
So I feel like every time we do a podcast, I have a somewhat funny Ryan story to tell. But when Ryan was quite young, it was so hard to get him to give any suggestions of what he might want for Christmas. And one year he was determined that he wanted a toy water bomber. And there was one other thing that he wanted that simply didn't exist on in this world, any other world. Like it just was not a thing that existed. And it was heartbreaking for him because he still very much believed in all the magical parts of Christmas at that point. So then after that, never again did he ever have a suggestion of what he might want for Christmas, which broke my heart a little bit. But now it's become almost this little game between his dad and I and my husband now. So the three of us are all trying to win Christmas with Ryan. And I totally won last year with the toothbrush because he teaches us so much with his just intrinsic desire not to participate in that whole what I want is blah, to listen to him and observe him. So yeah, I won Christmas with a toothbrush, and it's just this joke between the adults, but it is interesting to me how important it is for him to feel like he's being seen and heard, which is the same for everyone. But you can tell only in the slightest little smirk on his face that, oh, you picked up on that. So nothing's very overt, but it just really, yeah, just that experience, despite how heartbreaking it was in the moment, really taught us to listen and see him more clearly, I think. And I don't even know if I answered your question or not, but I just wanted to share that experience because now he knows that we are thinking of him and we're trying to find things that are useful, but also something that he will really like to have. So, and I mean, with my older son, he's always happy to provide me with a list of things that he needs that I could choose from if I wish to buy him Christmas presents. But we have started to try to normalize secondhand gifting and making things. I love, 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 love when somebody makes me something because it just lets you know that they really do value you enough to give up their time, not just put money into it, but to actually give up their time.
I agree. I agree. And I think that with children as well, eliminating the whole experience of a Santa Claus, for example, experience where it's about me and what I want, and being able to shift into what would I like to gift to that person? So then the child shifts from me, I want to really diving into a meaningful sharing or exchange, or it's a real thrill to be able to find something and to offer to another person, and it doesn't have to be a gift that you've spent a lot of money on.
And as you said that, it makes me think, and I can't think of the exact example, but there's been times where my kids have given me gifts, and it speaks to all the things Sam has been saying about they've been paying attention, they have a particular lens, and the gift wasn't necessarily expensive, but it's just like, oh, that's something that you've noticed about me that speaks to you, and then you gave me something to fill that need or to help me out or to whatever. And those are the gifts that bring tears to my eyes. And this year I've been thinking about, as an aunt, what's my role? And I have been thinking about taking my nieces and nephews and spending a couple of evenings with them in this season to help them prep gifts for the people in their lives, so they start to think about what could they make? What could we do together that could then be a surprise for their parents?
I think that's a very generous offering of you. Like, you are also thinking about other people. You're thinking about your nieces and nephews, and as well then it's about who else they may be in relationship with. And I guess maybe what comes to mind for me is we're talking about this. I want to encourage listeners to go out into their community, because I know that in our community here, I see that the public libraries, for example, often have activities or experiences that you can join, that they offer, that you can make things. So keep your eyes open. If you're worried about missing it, go to the website for these different offerings from the public libraries to see what you might be able to join, what your children might be able to join, all under the idea or the perspective that it will be an activity that you're engaged in together. And the outcome is that someone might have a little something that they can offer as a gift to another human being. anything else that crops up in your minds about how families who might be looking at, having a gift to give, or, I even think about the different food banks in the community, that the offerings that are available there. I just know that people in communities are struggling a bit right now. And if we can be an encouraging source to help people locate activities or products, then that would be beneficial.
I mean, as you both know, I volunteer at a food bank here in Gravenhurst once a week, and there certainly are lots of opportunities to get involved with those sorts of organizations all year long. But the need is definitely higher, especially if you live in a climate where the weather gets worse in the winter time. So, there's more things to think about, more things to struggle with. I think a lovely family activity is to potentially volunteer at a food bank, or you can also, as a family, go through your outerwear and see what doesn't fit anymore that you could launder and then perhaps give to someone who needs it. So there's a lot of communities have coat drives and things like that. And that those sorts of things need to happen now because, as we know, it is getting chilly out. But what a wonderful way to set the tone with your family for what you want this whole season to look like. To start it off with trying to find things in your home to donate to someone who might need them more, which and as I'm saying that, my children see me do it every year, but I don't know that they have really internalized that lesson. But maybe they have, because sometimes Ryan or John will say to me, "I don't wear this anymore. Can you give it to someone who needs it?" So I guess now that I've just worked through that in my little head here, they probably do pick up on that. But I just think it sets the tone of giving and thinking of others, which I think is really important, and it's so necessary. For instance, right now at Gravenhurst Against Poverty, where I spend my time volunteering, because I don't have a lot of hours for volunteering, and that's where I choose to put them. It's Socktober, because we see a lot of folks coming in and they don't have socks. So people are donating socks. And when you think about it that way, like, there's a lot of really basic needs that need to be met in our communities. And any opportunity you have to kind of show your children how to offer that kindness, I think, is a huge present to give them this time of the year, any time of the year, really. So
You're reminding me with that story, Sam, is not so much for Christmas, but for birthdays. I struggled with a tiny little house when our kids were little, and I struggled with birthday parties because they had this influx of gifts and we didn't have any place for them. And I also didn't want to get into the growing pressure, I think, to give gifts that are significant and whatever. So one year we did a few things with the kids, but one year we had each of the kids bring a toonie and we went through the world. I can't remember. It's the World Vision, I think, catalog. And together, the group at the birthday party picked what gift they wanted to send a family across the world. And then my husband, as the party was carrying on, made them each a certificate like, together, you bought a family 5 chickens. And it was the best. We had no stuff in the house. We
mhm.
taught them a little bit about people who didn't have other things. And they all thought it was the bee's knees. Hey, mom, guess what I did today? I bought chickens.
That's amazing. I love that so
Mhm.
much.
We did that through Plan Canada. And I think, like, looking locally, we were talking about this the other day, that if only we had, so we've got the idea, we just need someone to give us the space or the social media vehicle by which we do this. But what could I give you from my house? Remember that conversation we had?
Mhm.
That it might be something that I don't need and maybe I don't want to sell. And I know people will say, oh, we've got the different groups in social media, but this is a lot more intentional and specific. It's almost like it's just a conduit of no longer serving a purpose here, but requiring to be of purpose somewhere else, just so that we can, make sure that there's no holding back of supporting other people. There's a practice called Just Like Me in my mindfulness world, and I really appreciate that. And it's just like me. This person wants to have a full belly before they go to bed at night. And just like me, this person wants to have a bed with warm blankets. And just like me, this person wants to have warm boots. And so how can we actually facilitate that? And I guess I'm just encouraging everyone to reach out and express what it is that they might be needing or what they might have that they're willing to offer to someone else. It's sort of supportive what we were talking about, gifting, and gifting in ways where we don't have any money gifting in ways where you have a little bit of money, gifting in ways where it could be homemade gifts. We've been talking about that. And what else comes to mind for you?
I think it was at the Earlier Center, and it might have been Susan years ago who shared the story of somebody she knew. They had no money, and so the adults in the family would spend a couple hours with magazines, and they would make a, if I had money, these are the things I'd like to buy you and why. And even thinking about it, it still makes me teary because to me, that's the power of a gift. It's not the thing, it's not the money, it's the, oh, you saw how much I love to read. Oh, you saw how much my boots were wearing out. Like, oh, you're paying attention to me. So even if you couldn't give it to me in real form, to give it to me as a series of images, at least for me, still fills some of that cup, a huge part of that cup.
Another way of validating another human being.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anything come to mind for you, Sam?
I think we've covered a lot of things already, but I think something that is kind of a neat idea if people are trying to do Christmas on a budget is perhaps plan a day to go to your local thrift store and maybe take turns going in so that you don't know what everybody else might have selected to give as a gift. But there's certainly some gems to be found in thrift stores. And just because something's been loved and used before doesn't mean that it doesn't have lots of life and love left in it. So I think it's a great opportunity to, keep things out of the landfill, which is an important thing in my brain. And also it teaches little like children or other people as well, adults. But I'm thinking as kids are little, if you give them some money, there's some lessons there, even if it's a couple of dollars, they can decide how they're going to spend it. So I just think there's some good ways that way. If gift giving is super important in your family, then there are some ways to do it more economically. Yeah, I think secondhand gifting is such a great idea.
What comes to mind for me with your story, Sam, is often when I would be out with my grandchildren, they would see something and they would say that they wanted it. They would be, please, grandma. And I would just say, let's take a photograph of it so we'll remember when it comes time later on. And then, of course, over the period of time, we would see how the interest was still, whether it was still present or not. And I think about you, Sam, mentioning about the thrift stores. If anyone has a phone, they could go in and they could take photos of X amount of things and come back out and say, these are things that I would be interested in from this store. So one thing from there, from this selection, would be something that I would be interested in case someone had no idea, for example, of what to get another person.
I think that's a lovely idea because it's also time spent together, right? Like it's an adventure that you're going on together. It's an experience. And the experience could be the whole gift. You could have a time to go to a store and go in and take a picture of something that you would love to gift to someone as well and explain to them why that's something they would like, much like you were saying, Kelly, about the cutting things out of magazines, because then you're still spending time together, you're having an outing, and you're really thinking about the other people in your life. I love the idea of a selection of photos to choose from, but I think there's lots of fun, neat ways to make that interesting.
And for us, as we're talking about gift giving from thrift stores, we've also used that as the basis of we've purchased something from a thrift store and then added paint or did a little bit of visible mending
Mhm.
or blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden it's gone from like, we love a good bargain. My husband's family motto, I am certain, is it's not how much you spend, it's how much you save. So for him, if you add that to his present, like if it's on sale or you got it at a thrift store, that's an extra good present because you not only got him something, but you saved money doing it.
Score,
But it
score, score.
also can be this like, that's extra awesome because your little tweaks make it special and make it unique and make it really cool and make it custom made for that person.
Hmm. So let's wrap up this conversation with maybe a memory, because there's something that's coming to mind actually that I want to share with you. And so it was a tradition. It was something that started, I'll say, out of my sister's greed at Christmas. So what they decided to do was, in our family, we would hang up stockings. Well, in the 60s, those ingenious sisters of mine decided to hang up leotards. So can you imagine what my parents were faced with when all of a sudden there were leotards? So yeah, spaced out with fruit and things like that. So it's just one of those traditions that started in my family, and it didn't continue on with my children, but certainly all the way through for me. That's just a funny story that we have from my family about a tradition. How about you?
That's very funny. I'm gonna jump out of your query here and just say the idea of mending something, Kelly, has really resonated with me because it occurs to me that so my children's grandmother, my former mother-in-law, passed away a number of years ago, but she was quite the quilt maker. And my older son's quilt has some serious need for repair. So I'm thinking that I'm going to make the time between now and Christmas to repair that quilt for him, so that it's ready to be used again. So thank you for sticking that little bug in my ear. I appreciate that very much. And I couldn't think of a memory, Sandy, because I was too busy thinking about how I was going to fix the quilt. So
That's wonderful, Sam.
Something about that memory made me think of the gift of humor. And the quick little story I have is a friend of mine who's similar age to my parents asked me to buy some things on his behalf for Mountain Equipment Co-op. And this is at the time it was a co-op. And I said, I'm happy to do it. He's like, because I don't have a membership. I said, well, I'm happy to do it, but you do know a membership's $5, right? Right, yeah. So that year for Christmas, I took a little cardboard box. I bought a $5 Mountain Equipment Co-op gift certificate, and I put a membership application in it and a pencil. And I wrote, make your own membership kit. And his wife called and said, that was the best Christmas present. We could not stop laughing. And I think sometimes the best Christmas presents are the things that just tickle your funny bone, and they're just hysterical, whether that's wrapping something in a giant box that's little tiny. But yeah, I like laughter. That's my memory.
Great way to end. So from us to you, we hope that however you celebrate, that you have great times together. And if you are not together with anyone else, we encourage you to listen to another podcast, because we will bring a smile to your face. See you next time.
On the Ground Parenting is a production of Muskoka Family Focus's Parent Education Program. It is made possible by the generous donations of listeners like you. If you'd like to make a donation, sponsor an episode, or just ask a question of one of our hosts, go to linktr.ee/On the Ground Parenting. On the Ground Parenting is produced and published by Red Juice Studios. To learn more, go to redjuicestudio.com. Thanks for listening.